Ready for it. Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, Sierra. It's good to see you after the
Hello.
holidays. How have your
Hi.
holidays been? The Thanksgiving holiday.
It was good. I was looking forward to us getting together, but I did have a nice, relaxing Thanksgiving, which is different than normal for my family. So it was really nice.
Really glad to hear that. I think the last time we met, um, you were talking about some things you needed to do as far as with your business partner, and having some conversations, but more importantly, sort of leaning into how you're able to, in your professional role, really push conversations, those critical conversations. But when it comes to personal, or if there's a personal relationship, even with business, there's something that was blocking you from doing that. So before we proceed into our coaching session, where I will ask you what you want to focus on, I'd love to hear any progress you've made in that direction.
I love to share. I know in our last session we talked about. I think I shared with you. Did I share, Michelle, about my journaling? Like when I know the hard conversations are coming up and being able to journal. So I've been doing that, and that's been helpful. Surprisingly, like my anxiety levels have been decreasing because of that, which so I'm going to keep doing it, of course. And then the other thing I said I was going to try was even like those relationships that are both personal and professional, like having conversations with them about how I show up professionally, being separate from our personal friendships or relationships. And so I did have that conversation with my business partner, and she was really like, I need to talk to a couple people. Like she wanted to do the same thing so that we don't take business stuff into the professional relationship and how we feel about each other. So I feel like I'm doing pretty good in that area. I know that having difficult conversations and me trying to avoid them is going to be something I have to continue to work on. But I like these little tools that, and then another friend sent a sheet that I could kind of work through, and I used that for something that I was doing professionally. And so I think I have some skills. What I want to talk about today is kind of on is similar to that, but I'm really happy where I am right now with the skills that I'm using with the difficult conversations and maintaining those relationships.
Well, thank you. It sounds like you've been actually really utilizing those steps that we talked about in previous sessions. Glad to hear that you said the tension level is lowering. Seems like you've tapped into some resources and tools that are helping you do that. So I'm really curious today what you'd like to focus on, given that you just stated um, it's similar. So what would you like to focus on today, Sierra?
I don't think it's similar. It kind of aligns with that professional world and the difficult conversations. But I wanted to talk today about kind of assessing where I am professionally. And I'll just give it plain. I have been thinking that it's time for me to seek a professional mentor, um, because our nonprofit has grown so fast, and the amount of people we employ, the budget we hold. I sometimes feel like I'm out of my league or a little bit of imposter syndrome. And I was wondering, I want to be able to have a mentor that has some similar experience, but I also feel like there's some sweetness of kind of going through it. Like this last 3 years, I haven't had real mentorship, and I feel like I've learned so much and gained so much. So I just keep going back and forth about, when is it time to seek advice from others, and what are even the areas that they would advise me on.
Great. And Sierra, tell me why this is important. Why is this important now?
I think for me, it's important now because my schedule is always crazy. I sometimes feel like extremely overwhelmed. And like I mentioned, I have periods because I know what imposter syndrome is. I'm able to talk myself out of it, but I have periods of times where I'm having that negative self-talk, like, and I don't want that to consume me. So it's important for me to kind of figure out next steps so that I'm doing the right thing. And then I feel responsible for the 50 people we employ, right? That keeps me up at night.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've heard you say more than once is, because I was going to ask you about the blocks and barriers, you've identified it as the imposter syndrome. So let's lean a little bit more into what is that for you, even though you know enough to say this is what's happening, and that sometimes you're able to stop and sort of negate that. But tell me more about what is causing the imposter syndrome, because that's a huge block for you.
So yes, it is. I think when I first realized it coming up was a type of like almost insecurity about, am I worthy? Am I supposed to be here? Do I know enough? And lately it's been because I pride myself on my integrity and doing what I say I'm going to do. And because I've been so inundated with executive director roles, my passion is really teaching and training and things of that nature. So I don't get to do that anymore. And I think that also plays a part on that imposter part. Like, are you even good at the ED when you're really trained to do these things? So that's where I think the barriers out. That's where the barriers started to show up for me, and just being able to realize it has been helpful, but also nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I definitely hear your point of saying your comfort zone is the teaching and training, but you've been propelled into this leadership role of executive director where you don't know for sure, do I have the right amount of knowledge and expertise to actually be in this, which causes you to have that feeling of imposter syndrome. What would success look like out of this coaching session today?
I think to one, kind of talk through, my worthiness, but then two, having some more things that I can directly think about or go to when that time pops up. And then the third thing is, if I know this is a lot, but figuring out if a mentor would be helpful to combat some of those barriers.
Yeah, and if I can suggest, with your permission, Sierra, let's lean into the mentor first, because that's actually what you started with saying, I think this is the right time for a mentor. And you leaned in why it was important, which is talking about the imposter syndrome, maybe some more expertise from someone who has that executive director level knowledge. And then hopefully the other two things that you're looking for might sort of align there nicely.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I agree.
All right. So tell me about this mentor and what you're looking for them to be able to help you with.
I'm hoping that I can find someone, like I said before, with kind of the experience of running a large nonprofit, but someone who's high integrity and spiritual, because I have a heavy spiritual connection into this. I think having someone that I can talk to and bounce ideas off will, I don't know why, but it will kind of validate my work for me. Just knowing that I'm not making decisions without advice or counseling. And I don't mean like mental health counseling, but like one-on-one conversations that I can bounce off of someone that I trust.
Yeah. And it sounds like you sort of have a composite of who this person should be, their values, their background, what you need from them. Have you began to think about how to seek them or to find this person?
That is what scares me. So I have, like, in the nonprofit world here in my state, there are a lot of EDs who I would consider close friends, professional friends, but and I know that I could probably lean into one of them. And so I do have one female in mind, but she just had a horrible traumatic experience. And so I just think that this might not be the right time to add on. So I was trying to think of, someone else, or if I just wait a little bit or have the conversation and let her tell me if it's the right time or not. So I do have people in mind, and the reason why I wanted it to be someone local is because they'll understand the landscape, they'll understand the funding landscape and things of that nature. That's the things that I really would want to like bounce the ideas off of about what's happening in our state.
Yeah. So it sounds like you actually thought of some folks, one in particular. Timing might not be great, but you're really excited about what you think that she can offer you. I believe you said a she.
Mhm.
Are there other avenues of seeking this mentor that you may not have considered? Because you mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm a little afraid of that. So let's dive into that. Yeah, I see the facial expression. Let's dive into that.
So I'm a private person, especially with our org, because of how like the business sometimes is cutthroat, the politics of it. And so it does feel like stepping out on a limb a little bit to be transparent about, our operations. But I was thinking about this, Michelle, because even if this is not the right time for her, there are other like leadership groups and national groups that I might be able to be a part of. And I did sign up and attended a large group of African American women who are leading businesses, not just necessarily nonprofit. So it's nice to have that group of people, and they bounce all types of things like marketing and funding. And so that is nice, but it's still not, I realized even after going to that for a couple of weeks, it's still not the type of engagement that I really would like to have. So that's what made me go into this now with you is, do I really want to just have that one-on-one, more personal relationship?
Yeah. And so one of the things I'm hearing throughout, which is sort of a trend from other coaching sessions, is this person that you're considering is a colleague, but also a friend. Have you given any thought to how that dynamic may affect or be beneficial for you in the mentoring that you're seeking?
I think that is the underlying apprehension too. I really feel like it could be a gift and a curse. Like there are good things about this person being a mentor because she knows me. But she also has watched me. She's older, so she's watched me grow up. She knows my family, that kind of thing. So she has some background stuff, which can be helpful. But then I worry about what happens a lot with my in this landscape is those people, the older generation, and what I would say are my my go-to people in this landscape, they see me as their daughter or their little sister, and so they are I feel like they soften some things, and the way they speak is sometimes different and I just need that straight to it, no fluff type of information. So there is good and bad parts to having someone that you really know be a mentor to you.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, since you started journaling, that might be helpful for you is to consider those pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Because you're already identifying, they think of you as a daughter, they've seen you grow, which can be beneficial in one sense. But on the other hand, you're identifying that I need this mentor to be real matter-of-factly, real, challenge me, push me in the areas I need to, so that I can bridge that gap from where I think that I am to where I want to be.
Right.
Right. And so with that, Sierra, I would love for you to think about right now, if you step outside of the comfort zone of someone someone who's grew up with you, and think about maybe some other folks that might be giving you what you really are asking for in that mentorship role.
I think there are people that I admire and I work alongside of, and they're not necessarily in Delaware. They, like from my time in Baltimore and things of that nature, that I feel like would be probably a better fit for mentorship, especially because they don't even know, like in Delaware, Network Connect is a household name now. And so they don't even know the ins and out, which will sometimes be helpful too with mentorship versus anyone in Delaware is going to know, and we're a nonprofit, so everything's public. They're going to know the ins and outs a little bit more. I also think this is wow, because I didn't think about this, but I also think having someone who was a little bit removed and not having that personal relationship would help me to validate, which is weird. I don't know why I feel that way, because I wouldn't feel like they're just saying it or they're just telling me because they know me, but I'm able to share my point of view, and then they're able to give me non-biased opinion, advice, things of that nature.
Yeah. And I think right there, Sierra, I saw some lighting up of your eyes. Like it doesn't seem to make sense because they don't know me that they will validate. But now I see the connection that if they're not a friend, they're not just saying, oh, I don't want to hurt Sierra's feelings. So therefore, I'm not going to be as honest as I need to. And I hear you repeatedly saying, I need that
That's
to
what I
bridge
need.
that gap.
Because I feel like everybody is doing, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. Continue.
I feel like everybody in my life is doing that right now. Like, for some people, I'm a curse breaker. So they see me as like, you're doing things that we didn't think, our families, people could do. And then for some people, like the people I would consider mentors and thought leaders, they are just so proud and they don't always give it to me straight. Like I have to prep them to be like, no, tell me, tell me the real. How would you have done this? What would you have done differently? And so, yeah, I don't want a repeat of that because that's already happening in my life.
Yeah. And so what I want you now to take that energy that I see you have within your body and your face and think about what action steps can you start to begin maybe making a list of those folks that are possible candidates for this mentor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I want to, because the same way I was thinking about who I would want in the landscape, I think I want to journal about, regardless, what is the ask, because that's what I do as a mentor. When someone asks me to mentor them, what is the goal and what are you looking for and what are you hoping that I connect to? So I think I want to write that stuff out. And then maybe my mentor is maybe my mentor is in the group that I joined and I just need to have a conversation with someone in that group, because there are a lot of women that I admire in that group and who are doing really, really like big stuff. So maybe that's why that connection to the group is there.
Yeah, so it sounds like you identified two action steps. One is the journal, exactly what the ask is, what you want the mentor to do. And then two, lean into this group that you're already a member of and reach out to some of those women that you admire who are not friends. And so therefore, it's leaning into what you really need, which is getting someone who does not have a personal interest in you.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you think about? I see the smiling. I see
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
That makes me feel so good. Because I wasn't, it's so helpful to just talk it out because I wasn't thinking of it in that way. I wasn't thinking about the pros of having someone that's not in the landscape. I kept thinking about you need someone who knows what's going on here because that's what you're struggling with. But the politics, and I'm sure running a nonprofit here or in Texas is the same. It's just different players. And so I think it would be even beneficial to have someone who can talk to me about different layers of running an organization. So I'm excited. And I think I am because I have a meeting with the girls. It's a lot of them too. It's almost 100 ladies. And I have that this Friday. And so even though I'm not going to discuss it this Friday, but to just be having that lens in the meeting is going to be, I think, even change the way I engage a little bit. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I know one of the things having coached you before, Sierra, is that you are a person that likes to write things down. So is this the time where you might want to write a couple of things down so that you can remember to follow up in the upcoming weeks?
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to write those two things down. So the first one was to list out list out my ideal needs, but also what I'm looking for and the goal of this mentorship relationship, right?
Correct.
And then the last one was to start kind of looking at that group for mentorship. Thank you. I'm all good.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear from you, Sierra. How committed are you to this on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being I am out the door committed, 1 being I still have some things I need to work out before I begin this path, this action step path.
I'm at a 10 because I feel like if I can change my mind, my own mind frame about it, I feel like I'm hindering myself from.
Sierra, you froze.
From the elevation at I'm a little I'm hindering myself from my next step by not taking this step. So I'm at a 10 to take this step so I can move on.
Great. So since you said you're at a 10, now I have a magic wand over you, and I'd like for you to sort of think that you've already taken some of these steps. What would be your ultimate end result of this relationship with this mentor?
My end result would be to have a strong, high integrity, dependable mentor identified or already starting to meet with, where I'm honest and open and they're honest and open. I think that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And you mentioned in the beginning of the session that the importance here is linked to imposter syndrome that you sometimes have. Do you see any way that this mentorship can help you with imposter syndrome, knocking down those blocks and barriers when you feel that way?
Yeah, I know from mental health work that imposter syndrome is usually your own self-talk. And I also know that somewhere it comes from like insecurity and needing validation. And so I think that the mentorship itself would help me validate what I've built, because I worked hard for this. It wasn't given to me. And even in my areas where I lack the knowledge, I'm a person who will teach myself or go. And so I think the mentorship will help me to see you always pouring and you do above and beyond to get to the point. And so as long as you keep learning and keep trying, then because I sometimes think that these people were born into leadership, and that's not the case. Like they probably went through some of the paths that I did, and just hearing it from someone else will be helpful. It would just validate the work for me.
Yeah. So Sierra, I want to say to you, I think it's really courageous that you're stepping back and saying, you know what, I need this support. I need this level of support because I went from being a teacher and a trainer to being an executive director. This is where I am. I love the work I'm doing, but I need that support to really make me feel comfortable in the role, as sometimes I had that negative self-talk that doesn't, that can definitely use another person who's walked through these shoes in this role to help me. Does this feel like a good place today to kind of stop so you can have some time to reflect on the session today and your next steps?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm really excited about the 2 solid steps we took. And I like the idea of just being able to journal even about some of the stuff I was able to say today.
Yeah. And before we close, were there any takeaways that really stamped in your mind today?
Yes, the idea of thinking about a mentor who's not in my state, who's not in my landscape, who I don't know, and how that could probably be even more beneficial than what I was thinking of before we started the call. That was eye-opening.
Great. Well, I'm super excited to hear your next steps, one with crafting that ask and writing, and then beginning to approach some of the ladies in your leadership group to see who's going to be a great match for what you're asking for a mentor. But thank you so much for today, and I look forward to next session.
Thank you, Michelle. Me too.